What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the Stocks with Mike and Tom show. Happy Super Bowl Sunday. Let us know who you have winning the Super Bowl in the comments down below. It's going to be a big week for so many stocks. We have some giant news to go over and a lot of great plays. But, Tom, let's get right into it.
Yeah, it's going to be a huge week, Mike. We can see last week tech stocks and the S&P 500 really took a big tumble. The QQQ just kept falling to the downside, and we just kept having bad news after bad news. And Mike, the main thing that I'm looking at for this week is going to be all this crazy news going on in Russia. We can see the Pentagon ordered departure of U.S. troops in Ukraine as the Russia crisis escalates. Apparently, the marching order comes as an estimated 100,000 Russian troops equipped with advanced weaponry line Ukraine's eastern border and northern border with Belarus. So, definitely getting pretty crazy here. And the U.S. is pretty much reducing their diplomatic staff in the embassy down to bare minimum, according to the CNBC article. So sounds pretty crazy, Mike. The tensions are definitely building, and the market was not liking these last week. We can see the QQQ sold off pretty big. The SPY also continued down. And then also, we're seeing stuff like gold and silver, and then even crude oil start to really fly up. So it's getting pretty volatile in the overall market, Mike. And I'm really hoping that, something peaceful can happen this week. But as of right now, it seems like these tensions just keep getting more escalated and more escalated.
Yeah, the tensions are definitely building. And like you said, Tom, look at those oil prices. Like, how about we look at like oil prices or crude oil futures over like the past couple of weeks? Like, I know this is just like a 5-day chart, but it's like, geez, like it's just been going up nonstop for what seems like ever now.
Yeah, it has. We hit that $65 support all the way back at the beginning of December. And now we're sitting at $94.66 at the high. That is insane. A lot of analysts have been saying that we might be at $100 a barrel pretty soon. And, it's definitely not going to help those gas prices, but these tensions do not help the prices of oil at all. As we know, Russia is a huge supplier of the overall world's oil markets. Of course, Middle Eastern countries and even countries like Iraq and stuff like that are also pretty important, but Russia is one of the biggest suppliers. I know the U.S. is right up there with them. And obviously there's just like two powerhouses right now kind of coming together. So hopefully these tensions start to die down, Mike, and we can start to see the S&P 500 start to maybe come back up. And we have a lot of big earnings this week that if they go well, it might be able to help the markets come back up a little bit at least.
Yeah, how about we show those earnings? Because, Tom, we've had so many giant earnings releases like over like the past month, and eventually it's going to slow down a little bit, but we have another giant week ahead of us. Like, I look at this chart and we have Roblox, Shopify, Nvidia, Palantir, Roku, DraftKings, Walmart, Fiverr. Like, it goes on and on and on. So it's like lots of giant earnings this week.
Yeah, big ones. Then even like some smaller ones that we missed, like Cisco, DoorDash, Fastly, Redfin even is reporting on Thursday after close, which is going to be a little bit interesting there. And, so many good ones, even like RUN or Sunrun's going to be reporting. So lots of awesome companies here. My favorite one this week, Mike, is definitely going to be Nvidia. I love the chip stock. So of course, Nvidia is going to be my favorite. I mean, I can't forget DraftKings on Friday, of course. That's definitely going to be a close second, if not even higher than Nvidia. But man, Nvidia, with the way that they've been running this year, is just going to be so interesting to see.
True that. I'm going to wait all week very patiently for DraftKings. I think that's going to be a giant release. We saw like Penn National Gaming report earnings recently, and they did decent. It's just like they were trying to run up a lot. It's just when you have the market overall just tanking down, it's hard to see a strong breakout. So hopefully we could see some good movement, of course, out of DraftKings and some of these other earnings releases. But I would say the main thing, Tom, is we need the market to hold up because, as we've seen in the past, you can report great earnings, great outlook, but if the market's tanking, the stock will probably fall too.
Yeah, exactly. And last week, a couple of stocks ended up going up while the market was down with their earnings. But another good point is that, if the stock only went up 5%, it might have went up 10 or 20% if the market wasn't going down. So it definitely hurts those gains. And, I'm really hoping to see some of these companies come in better, Mike. I think that might help the market push back up. And with the S&P 500 here, we're at a pretty big support right around $440. If we look at this on the 180-day 1 hour chart, 440 was a pretty big level. as the S&P 500 was bouncing at these lower levels, once we fall through 440, Mike, I'm going to be eyeing up some of these other supports like 436. And then below that, honestly, the next one's all the way down around 427 or 428. So it could start to get scary. And it looks like the SPY kind of double topped last week, which is not a good technical sign.
Yeah, not a good sign at all. And then can you just go to like the daily chart of like end phase really quickly? I just want to showcase a couple points. So, as the market has been like falling over the past couple weeks, like we could see end phase like really started to run on their good earnings report, but then just died down over 3 days. And it's like almost an exact same scenario with Google's earnings. Like they had so much momentum, they were running on split news, and then they're just slowly fading back down. We have another perfect example with Disney. So if we check out that one, they popped up on earnings and now they're fading back down. So like when you're playing these earnings over this next week, like even if it goes up, if the market's tanking down, lately we've been seeing a lot of these, what I'll just call like earnings fade setups.
Yeah, definitely. Even stocks like AMD have had it happen too. And, it seems like it's just happening across the board. That was a really good comparison there with Disney even. I mean, it's almost like a direct correlation after those earnings to see that like rundown like that. So really good point there. Always be careful with the earnings. And Mike, I did want to talk about DraftKings earnings just a little bit more because, we do have the Super Bowl coming up this week. And I know the Super Bowl is going to be huge for DraftKings. Every year, obviously, bettors pour into different teams for the Super Bowl. And this year, I've been hearing a lot of rumors that the majority of bettors are kind of getting in on the Bengals. Apparently, the Bengals are America's like favorite team this year. So I don't know. We'll have to see how it ends up going. But it seems like the DraftKings is going to need the underdog to kind of lose here because it looks like everyone's betting on the Bengals. And obviously, if they win, that could end up hurting DraftKings in a way, So we kind of need like those bets to kind of even themselves out. So, always keep in mind that these big events could end up affecting these companies in a good or a bad way, depending on the outcomes. And I know DraftKings got hurt a little bit last year when those games did not go the way they wanted.
True. Yeah, like most of the time the house like always wins, like especially over the long term. But of course, like any specific game is normally up for grabs. So we will see there. And then Tom, I also know we have a bunch of giant events coming out later in the week with the Fed. So what's on the schedule?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Like we're seeing the S&P 500 was flying down last week. So some of this Fed news might be pretty important. And we can see on the trading economics calendar here, we can see that pretty much on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, we're going to have a lot of stuff coming out. So on Wednesday in the morning, we're going to have retail sales coming out. But the biggest thing is going to be at 2 p.m. Eastern time on Wednesday. We're going to have the FOMC minutes from their last meeting, and that's going to be huge. I know the minutes affected the market a lot when the last report came out, so we'll definitely have to see what they're talking about. They're probably going to come out with stuff like they want to raise rates and different stuff like that. And as we've seen, at least in the short term lately, it's been making the market fall a little bit. So that's going to be very interesting on Wednesday around 2 p.m. Eastern time. But then on Thursday and Friday, we have 5 different Fed speakers. You can see Thursday, we have Bullard and Mester speaking. And then on Friday, we're going to have Waller, Williams, and then the vice chair Brannard speaking. And I know she's pretty influential. So that's going to be a pretty big speech on Friday.
We're set for another giant week, Tom. Be prepared for that volatility because, of course, we have earnings, but then the Feds and then, the minutes, of course. So, and then Russia and Ukraine. So it is going to be a wild, wild week. So, Tom, like with that being said, like what are you watching this week? Like, do you have like any like important thoughts or like any favorite plays, any important levels on the SPY? Like, what are you seeing with all these crazy events going on?
Yeah, honestly, some of the biggest stuff I'm going to be looking at are the metals markets, Mike. And I know that you put out an amazing video yesterday covering some of these stocks like GLD, SLV, and even like crude oil's been flying up lately. But looking at like GLD and SLV, they got so explosive last week, especially on Friday. And the thing is that gold and silver, they're always going to be good hedges against inflation, but then also they generally do pretty well in times of conflict, just like we're seeing right now with Russia and Ukraine and stuff like that. Bettors always expect volatility with news of war. So they start to, hedge their bets. They start to get into some gold, some silver, and especially with inflation going on, it's almost like a no-brainer right now. So really, gold and silver are going to be on my radar in a pretty big way. GLD is approaching a 175 resistance here. If we pass this, I could see us heading back up towards that 180 resistance. And honestly, I could see it happening with how much momentum has been coming in here. So definitely eye up these metals, Mike. It's going to be one of my favorite things to look at. And then, of course, obviously, I'm just going to be watching DraftKings and a lot of these stocks with the Super Bowl and then also with all the earnings coming up. It's just going to be a huge week overall for the stocks that are reporting, like DraftKings, Nvidia, and stocks like that. And I did want to point out one thing with the chip stocks really quick is that if we look at like AMD, man, like on Friday, they were down 10%. So I'm going to be really eyeing up those Nvidia earnings to see if it can maybe help the chip sector turn around. But if not, I mean, it might cause a huge sell-off here.
True that. All right, Tom, before we wrap up today's video, we definitely want to go through the momentum plays. And the first one is Neo to the downside.
Yeah, poor Neo here. Go ahead and make them fall below 23.70.
All right, with the next one, we have Facebook.
Yeah, Facebook also to the downside. I was hoping to see this one up, but go ahead and make them break below 217.50.
All right, and with the last one, we have Microsoft.
Microsoft also to the downside. Those big tech stocks just keep going down. Go ahead and make Microsoft fall below 294 even. And I think this one can be huge considering they fell through $300 last week.
True that. So we are watching Microsoft, Facebook, and Neo for potential day trades to the downside tomorrow, only if they break below the levels Tom listed. And I also wanted to give a giant shout out to our member of the day, Nando, in the Discord. Thank you so much for all of your support and kind words. I just want to say Tom and I greatly appreciate all of you who watch the channel. If you are new here, please consider subscribing. We have some awesome new things in the works and we post brand new videos every single day. So if you are new here, please consider subscribing and let us know what team you have winning the Super Bowl later today. It's going to be a fun night. So again, thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any questions, let us know in the comments down below. Other than that, thanks for watching.